Hello, welcome to more financial math. Today we're going to talk a little bit about installment buying, specifically fixed installment loans. You might take out one of these, like let's say you need to buy a new AC system for your house. If you don't have the money all up front, you might take out a fixed installment loan where you take out a certain amount, there's interest charged, and then you pay payments and pay it back and get it paid off. We're going to look at those, and then we're going to look at how to find how they figure out the payment, and then we're going to look at what happens if you want to pay off your loan early. So because if with these fixed installment loans, if you pay it off early, you're not responsible for the interest that would have accrued after you finish paying it off. So we'll look at those scenarios, and then if you tune in for the video that follows this, we will look at the open-end installment loans, which typically look like credit cards. So we'll look at some different math behind some of the credit card type computations. All right, so moving into fixed installment loans. In a fixed installment loan, principal plus interest is paid back in a set amount of time by fixed payments. Computing the payment is done with the same formula as when dealing with mortgage payments, or you can use an APR table to determine the total finance charge, add that to the principal, and divide by the number of payments. So we're going to look at both. We're going to look at how to use an APR table, and we're also going to look at the formula. All right, so first example, in our current textbook, it's out of the homework. Like I said, like maybe you're trying to buy a new air conditioner, and you have a gentleman who paid $7,000 for a new AC unit, or needs to pay $7,000 for a new AC unit. And this gentleman's paying 20% down. So the person must have 20% of that right up front to pay off. So you would do if you do 0.20 times 7,000, you'll see how much the down payment comes out to. If you do that, you get $1,400. But the remaining balance needs a loan. So the 17,000 minus 1,400, or 7,000. Did I say 17,000? 7,000 minus 1,400 gives you 5,600. So this gentleman's going to take out a 36-month fixed installment loan for this. At an APR, annual percentage rate of 5%. Okay. You can find APR tables online. In our current textbook, there's one on page 593. I don't know what textbook in the future you're using, but they all look very similar. In an APR table, you can look up your number of payments that you're going to pay and your annual percentage rate, and then match up and see what the finance charge per $100 of amount financed is. It's very similar when you get to the mortgages. It's very similar to the tables there, where if you want to figure out your mortgage payment. So in this case, we're looking at 36 months. So the table in the book, I would find the 36. I find that row. And then since the APR is 5%, I find the column with 5.0%. And I see what number comes up in that intersection. And when I do that, I get 7.90. So the finance charge for this loan is $7.90 per $100 financed. Well, we're financing $5,600, so we need to see, what that is, how many hundreds that is. So if you just put 5,600 over 100, that tells you you're doing 56 hundreds. So you would take your 790 times 56. And that would give you $442.40. So that's how much the finance charge is on this particular AC if you do this installment loan. So the total that's going to be paid at the end of the 36 months will be the original $5,600 that the loan is on, plus the $442.40. I should say total paid on the loan. When you add those together, you get $6,042.40. So that'll be the grand total that'll be paid. So what kind of monthly payment do you need to make this happen? Well, that will be your principal plus interest over 36 months. So you take the $6,042.40 and you want to divide it evenly across 36 months. So you just divide like that and you get a $167.84 monthly payment. So quick recap. $7,000 for the new AC, but 20% down is like paying cash up front, $1,400. So the loan's going to be for $5,600. We use the APR table to figure out how much the finance charge will be. According to the table, the finance charge is $7.90 for every $100 financed. If for financing $5,600, that's 56 hundreds. So 56 of those times the $7.90 gives us a finance charge total of $442.40. So at the end of the 36-month loan, that'll be the additional charge paid in addition to the principal that was borrowed. So the principal $5,600 plus the $442.40 means this person's going to pay back $6,042.40 by the end of the loan. They make the monthly payments all the same. So since there's 36 months, divide that total by 36. And if you pay $167.84 every month, at the end of 36 months, you will have paid back that grand total of principal and interest. All right, so the APR table isn't the only way to do this. There's also an installment payment formula. This formula was derived by economic mathematicians. And honestly, you can get your APR table by using this formula. If you have the table handy, it's a lot easier and faster. But the formula, you can program a computer to do it. Or nowadays, you can go on the internet and you can just find calculators that will do this for you. You put in your numbers and it'll spit out your results. But here we go. If we want to figure out what the installment payment would be, like in this case, we want to find out that the payment's going to be $167.84, we could use this formula. The P is the amount financed, so the original principal. The R is the annual percentage rate as a decimal. The number is the number of payments per year, the N, and the T is the time in years. Okay, so in our situation, with this installment payment, the original principal was $5,600, so that goes in for P. The interest rate was 5%, so we put 0.05. There will be monthly payments, and there's 12 months in a year, so N is 12. That's how many payments per year. Then we got all of that over 1 minus. I'm very careful with my parentheses because those are going to be important. And on the bottom, we introduce, you got the N again, which is 12. Don't forget the negative there from the exponent. But we introduce to the T, which is the time in years. Well, 36 months of payments is 3 years. So we put a 3 there. It's 3 years of 12 payments per year. 36 payments. So that's all the information put into this payment formula. And we got to make sure we follow order of operations as we work this out. So what I did is I put the 0.05 divided by 12 into the calculator. and I got 0.004166. The 6s were repeating. And if you go ahead and multiply that together, you get 23.33 repeating on top. You know, with these big fractions like this, you want to simplify the numerator and simplify the denominator, then divide the final results. So in the denominator, I had, well, the 0.05 over 12 again. And if I'm adding 1 to that, basically, I just have 1.004166. The 6 is repeating. And 3 times 12, negative 36 power. I went ahead and put that 1.004166 repeating to the negative 36 power in the calculator. So I got 1 minus 0.8609762245. And then simplify a little more. The bottom comes out to 0.139023755. I like to avoid rounding until the very end, so I try to leave my long decimals in my calculator, or if I can't leave them in there, I try to keep writing them down. But at this point, I can go ahead and do that division. Now that I have a single number in the numerator, single number in the denominator, go ahead and do that division. I get 167.83702242. Remember, this is the monthly payment formula, so that's exactly what it's finding. It's finding out that the monthly payment is $167.84. All right. Notice a little something here. If I scroll back up, there you go. Same monthly payment, $167.84. So that's kind of interesting, isn't it? And then if you took that $167.84, that's the monthly payment for 36 months. Well, if you times that by 36, it says that you'll pay back $6,042.24. So that's kind of interesting because it's a little off. But that does happen sometimes because of the way things are rounded at different points, depending on your, whether you're using that chart where it's already rounded to the nearest cent before you start multiplying, or whether you're using this full formula. So if it's off by if the cents are off by a little bit, don't panic. It happens. But yeah, so now if you wanted to see what the finance charge was, like this would be the total paid. And the finance charge, you could take the total paid minus the $5,600, and you would get a $442.24 finance charge. That happens sometimes. Sometimes it's a little off. Don't stress about that part. All right. I like to usually pause and say any questions, but we're not in class. If you have any questions, you're welcome to pause and then email me or something, or call, whatever. But I'm going to move on in my video. I'm going to do another example related to this. And this other example I'm going to do, somebody bought a new computer on a monthly payment plan. New computer. The computer was $1,495. The person paid 5% down. So the person did not do a loan for $1,495. So you do 0.05 times the $1,495 You find out that you get a down payment of $74.75. So the actual financed amount would be the $1,495 minus the $74.75, which is $1,420.25. Then the person paid $64 a month for 24 months. The problem doesn't tell us what the interest rate was. In fact, we're going to find it. But before we do, let's figure out what the total paid was and then figure out what the finance charge was. The total payments, if we're doing it for $64 a month for 24 months, you can do 64 times 24 and you get $1,536. So the finance charge is the difference between the total payments and what was originally financed. So the 1,536 minus the $1,420.25. So you subtract those, you get $115.75 for the finance charge. We're interested in finding out what is the APR to the nearest 0.5%. Well, normally like with the previous example, we would go to our chart and we would know the number of payments and the APR. Like we're looking at 24 months here. And then we'd be looking at whatever the APR was up here. And then we would be looking up the finance charge per $100 financed. And whatever that number was, that chart number, we would multiply that by, let's see, $1,420.25 financed is 14.2025 hundredths, right? And that would equal the $115.75 finance charge. So the chart number, we just need to do a little division. What's the chart number supposed to be? 115.75 divided by 14.2025. So the chart number would be 8.149973596. That would be this number here. So if we want to know the APR, we're going to have to kind of use this chart in reverse of what we normally would do. We're going to find the row of 24, and we're going to find the number that's closest to this 8.1499 on our chart. Our chart's not extremely precise, and we're trying to just get it to the nearest 0.5% anyways. So when I look at the 24 row, and I start looking across, the closest thing I find is 8.00. That's the closest thing I find to 8.15, basically. And when I look up from there, the APR that matches that is 7.5%. So it's the nearest 0.5%. That's the APR being charged in this example. Okay, so that's a little bit about the chart and the payment formula. But what if we want to pay off our loan early? If we want to pay off our loan early, there is something called the actuarial method for unearned interest. And that's what we're going to use right now. You do not, if you pay off the loan early, you do not have to pay the unearned interest. So Like if you have a 24-month loan and you want to pay it off after 6 months, you don't have to pay the remaining 18 months interest. You have to pay the remaining principal, but not whatever interest would have accrued, because interest is the charge for using your money, for using the money. And if you're no longer using the money, then you shouldn't be charged for it anymore. So we can use this actuarial method, this formula here, to figure out, well, what is the unearned interest? How much interest would you have left to pay if you had paid this loan over the entire term? And we'll use this formula to figure that out, and then kind of rework things and figure out, like, so what would be my final payment if I want to pay it off right now this month early? U stands for unearned interest. N is the number of remaining monthly payments. That does not include the current month. So like in month 6, if you say, oh, I want to pay it off early, month 6 is not included in this. You would figure out, well, how many months are left after month 6. P is the monthly payment as it stands. And then V is the value from the APR table for the remaining payments. So we're going to use the APR table again that we were just using a minute ago. And that's going to help us find V. And I'll explain how we'll do that. And then put all that in the formula, and you'll figure out your unearned interest. And then you'll be able to subtract that from what's left of what you owe to see what the remaining principal is. And you'll be able to combine that remaining principal with your the current month's payment and pay off your loan early. All right, so let's look at an example. Okay, so we're talking fixed monthly payments. So we have like a 48-month installment loan. Fixed payment is $83.81. Originally borrowed $3,500. For the 18th payment, want to pay it off. Okay, so if this is the 18th payment, so for this payment, you're going to pay off the remaining, you're going to pay that month's payment and the remaining principal beyond that month, and not the interest beyond that month. Okay. So if this loan were paid in full 48 months would look like this. 48 times $83.81, and that would be $4,022.88. That's if this was paid completely. And the original amount borrowed was $3,500. So the finance charge, if you paid for full 48 months, paid those payments, the finance charge would be that $4,022.88 minus $3,500 that was originally borrowed. So that would be $522.88. Thing is, we're not going to pay that full finance charge, but we need to figure out what the APR was. So let's go back to our chart. The chart dollars times the 3,500 over 100, so 30, it'll be just 35, equals the finance charge of $522.88. So the chart dollars would equal 14.93942857. If you go back to that APR chart, we're looking at 48 months. Originally, it was a 48 months of payments. And we're trying to find as close as possible to $14.94 on that row. And actually I see that on that row. I see 14.94. And then directly up, that is the 7.0% column. So the original APR for this loan was 7.0%. All right. So how much is saved by paying off early? All right, so back to our actuarial method. U equals N times P times V over 100 plus V. So N was the number of remaining monthly payments excluding the current. Well, we're talking about the 18th payment on a 48-month loan, so we have 30 payments left after this. P is the monthly payment, so that's the $83.81. And then V is the value from the APR table that corresponds to the APR for the number of remaining payments. All right, so back to my APR row. This time, I have 30 payments left. So my APR row, I'll look on the 30 row. And I'm looking at 7% APR. So for that, when I look at my chart, I have a 9.30. So the 9.30 is what I'm using for my V. That's a little side note there. So we go ahead and work this out. Well, if you go and multiply on the numerator, remember, get your numerator simplified, get your denominator simplified, and then divide. You get 23,382.99 up top. And you get 109.30 on the bottom. Go ahead and divide. You get 213.9340348. So $213.93 is the interest not getting paid. Finance charge, that's the amount of the finance charge this person's not responsible for because they're paying it off early. Okay. So if the person wants to pay it off early, they still have to pay the principal. So if you take the $83.81 payment times the 30 remaining months, you get $2514.30. This is what this is from the remaining payments. Subtract that interest that's not getting paid. You get $2,300.37. This is the remaining principal. Because whatever those 30 payments would have been minus the unearned interest tells you, all right, this is the principal. So to pay off early, you got to pay the full payment for the 18th month plus that remaining principal. So we have the $83.81 full payment for that month, plus the $2,337 principal. So then that person would have to send in a check or do a bank transaction of $2,384.18. Nowadays, you probably can just pay it online, do a transfer of funds, and there you go. So a little recap there. It's a pretty long process. All right, it was a 48-month kind of loan with a fixed payment of $83.81. Originally borrowed $3,500. They didn't tell us anything else beyond that. Person wants to pay off the loan at the 18th payment month. If they paid for the full 48 months, you would do 48 times the monthly payment, and that would come out to $4,022.88. So that is the original principal plus interest for 48 months. You subtract that with the original principal of $3,500, and it tells you that the full finance charge would have been $522.88. So we can do that and reverse engineer a little bit with our APR chart to see what the APR was on the original loan. Normally we would take the dollars we found in the chart times the number of hundreds of amount financed to get our finance charge. But we know our finance charge. We know our hundreds financed, so we divided to get the chart dollars, $14.94. Well, on the row of 48 payments, I found $14.94 under the 7.0% column. So that told me that the APR was 7.0%. All that will help me now with figuring out how much is saved by paying off early. Okay, so I used the formula there, NPV over 100 plus V. That is called the actuarial method for unearned interest. Sounds very complicated, but it really isn't. So N was our number of remaining payments. That was 30. P was the monthly payment of $83.81. And then V was the value that corresponds to the APR for the number of remaining payments. All right, so that was the if you have 30 payments left at a 7.0% APR on your chart, that says that your value is 9.30. So we use that. Work that out. Get the interest not paid, that they don't have to pay. So then for that remaining loan, $83.81 payments for 30 more months would have been $25.14.30, but was minus that interest they don't no longer responsible for, the $213.93. That tells us the remaining principal, which they are still responsible for. So for that 18th month, they pay their full payment plus that remaining principal for the 30 months after. So to pay it off early, they would need to do that transaction. All right, so there you go. So there's a little bit of work, a little bit of information, and some examples that deal with fixed installment loans, including what happens if you want to pay it off early, how they figure out, like, all right, what does that final payment have to be so that your balance is zero? And it's a nice thought, isn't it? Being able to save on interest by paying it off sooner rather than later. All right, so there you go. Tune in again soon. We'll explore the joy of credit cards next time. But thank you for joining me.